The Nuggets get a back-to-back win, their second win in a row versus the Utah Jazz. A home win versus a divisional opponent. Can't complain about that, but I will. And also, we'll do a little bit of stock report, and we'll take a look at what the Nuggets need to accomplish now that they've got a few precious days off. This is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everyone, to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for making this your first listen. We appreciate you guys joining us on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can join the show and chat live with folks like Danny and Zamora and Kira and Big Honey. Well, Zamora's going to go. No big deal, Zamora. Hurricane's hanging out with us. Lots of folks hanging out with us to talk about the Nuggets, their win over the Jazz, etc., here on Locked On Nuggets. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by Adam Mares from DNVR. You can follow his work at Adam_Mares. Check out all of his great content at DNVR.com. Thanks for joining us on a Sunday night. If you were listening to this on Monday morning, hope you guys are having a great start to your week. On today's show, we're going to break down the Utah Jazz game and what we've got from takeaways from that performance. We'll get into a little bit of what we're hoping to see the Nuggets get accomplished in the couple of days that they've got off. They actually get to practice with a few days off before Wednesday's game. And in the last segment, we're going to do a little bit of stock watch. We're going to list one player that we think whose stock will be up by Christmas and one player whose stock we think will be down by Christmas. We'll do all that and more on today's show. Adam, how was your weekend?
It was good. It was nice and relaxing. We're going to talk about it later, but the Nuggets having 4 days off is great for me personally.
Personally, I approve of them having many days off so that I have less work to do. So the Nuggets get the win in on Saturday night versus the Utah Jazz. I was unable to make it as I had a migraine, but was able to tweet through it because that's how I'm wired. So we'll talk about this game in brief. It was a pretty boilerplate win from the perspective of the Jazz sat a bunch of guys. Lauri Markkanen was sick. Mike Conley needed the night off as he recovers from his injury. They were without a bunch of guys, and the guys that played extremely well in the step-up spot, just like we've seen across the league consistently this season against the Nuggets and other teams. A letdown opponent at home. I wasn't really surprised that this was more of a battle than maybe it should have been. It's interesting from the perspective of, I don't know a team that really faces the situation that the Nuggets were in and just kills the opponent. I honestly don't, because the Celtics haven't really played a lot of them. Like, for whatever reason, their schedule, in my recollection, they haven't faced a lot of teams that were missing dudes. Like a little bit of Miami, but that game was close for a while in the first matchup of the two, for a little while anyway. In general, most of the teams that are in the spot where a team is missing starters, they play pretty flat. It's a closer game than you expect. The other team that's shorthanded plays extremely hard. And none of that, I think, is to excuse the problems. Because if anything, I was more frustrated watching Denver in this game than usual based off of how easy it would have been for them to correct the problems. But then ultimately they get the win anyway because they're able to close the game. Because again, their clutch time performance continues to be ridiculously good.
Yeah. This was a game that went exactly the way you would have guessed. I hope for the blowout win, and I do think that there will be some blowout wins in the future when Denver's in that spot. But just given where they were, first game back from the big road stretch or what have you, I'm not surprised. And then, they got a little bit of hot shooting from who they were going up against, including and especially Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So to me, a little frustrating because I thought Denver played with fire. Got sloppy in moments when it looked like Denver was about to pull away, go up 10, and go on a run. Every time they did that, they got sloppy and then allowed Utah to stay in the game. But ultimately, down the stretch, I felt like they controlled it when it mattered and got the win anyway. So, to me, a little bit of a boilerplate one there.
It's interesting. You and I have very different results from this because I felt like the outcome was much more in doubt. The fact that they're able to kind of pull this off late in games, they have the number one defense in the clutch, Last 5 minutes, 5-point game.
Is this true?
They are number 1 in the league in defense. They are only 8-4
This is
in
a
such
big
games.
deal, don't you think?
Do what?
That's a big deal. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I think that's a little bit of a important stat.
I agree. Like they're phenomenal when they absolutely, positively, no doubt have to be. If they're in a game where they can win it, they absolutely do lock down and find a way to get it done. Now their offense is terrible.
Did you
Their
tweet
offensive
this
rating
out?
in their offensive rating in those situations is, let's see, looking at the clutch stats.
20th, 102.6.
Yeah, 102.6.
How are they have an 82 defense rate? Now, how many minutes are we talking about here? 53 total such minutes. So still kind of smaller sample size, but that's hilarious to me that they are number 1 defensively. All right. Come on, let's fire up the take machine. I didn't know this stat. I don't know if you tweeted this out earlier, but number
No,
1.
Malone's talked about it before.
Low.
Malone's talked about it a little bit, that that they've gotten it done, and they've been good in fourth quarters, and they've been good in the clutch, and that's been Malone's message. And I don't know. I guess I know why he's stressed it so much, but like this really has been his message: is, guys, we can do this. Like he said this. He's like, we can play defense when we choose to.
Yeah.
So that's what it really kind of comes down to.
Quick note here is I'm just going through this because I hadn't looked at this yet, Matt. For whatever reason, I wouldn't have guessed it, so I didn't even go to look at it. They have the number 1 defense, and you think, because I would think that some of their defensive issues are their turnovers, and just your defensive rating goes down when you're getting live ball turnovers and whatever. They have the 3rd most turnovers in the clutch, or the highest turnover percentage in the clutch. So they're turning it over more than they usually do in the clutch, yet not giving up points on defense.
Yep.
This is bizarre to me.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes.
I see this comment. Hurricane T-Bag saying more concerned about the offense. I don't understand. They are 3rd in offensive rating, and they have over their last 10 games a 120 offensive rating. Like their offense is historic. Everybody's in love with Boston right now. They're basically the same offense as Boston over the last 10 games.
Hurricane had several comments in the chat, and so it's part of a longer stream of them where he said he wasn't as worried about the defense as everybody else. That's kind of like his
I understand it, but I don't understand being worried about the Nuggets offense. To me, their offense looks great, and they have barely got connected yet.
He's agreeing with you because he's basically saying like, look, the defense is never going to be like elite. It could be good enough, but they got to make sure that the offense is amazing, and it has been. Yeah. Right? Like that's the thing is like, and that's why they're at the record that they're at.
Yeah.
Worst DeAndre Jordan game of the season for me, the Utah game. I thought DeAndre was singularly really bad.
No way. That Boston game is not going to be topped. That Boston game won't be topped.
Outside of the one possession, and that was such a stomping. Anyway, from start to finish. So for me, this one was worse because it was like, you're not facing a Boston Celtics team that's spacing you out. You're not facing Al Horford. You're not facing Grant Williams. Like, and playing drop coverage and getting beat for these rebounds when you're getting busted by Walker Kessler and these type of guys. That's worse to me. So I thought it was the worst game of the season. Celtics game probably number 2 on that list. So I thought DJ had a really bad game in this one. I thought Bones Highland was once again real rough. Christian Brown had the worst plus minus on the team. Don't care. He still was fine. Like he did the stuff that he's supposed to do.
He was good. There's actually an interesting note on him. They brought him in for Jamal Murray. And this was a curious one because they played stretches with no point guard for a while there. And it wasn't in both halves, and it wasn't very effective. So kind of like Malone's first sub off the bench has been different, right? He's trying different ones. I'm curious to see what he does in the next iteration, the next game. Because I kind of like the idea of Bones replacing Murray and just having a point guard on the court at all times. We'll see.
Somebody asked me this because I've been talking about this on Twitter. Fernando asked this, that you mentioned on Twitter the Nuggets don't get back. Why do you think that is? Because that's not a scheme issue. Also, if they don't get back, then that would stabilize the defense somewhat. This has stood out to me a ton. Like it's one of those things that I started to notice it, and once I started to notice it, I can't stop noticing it. Because when I started to really kind of dig into some of their possessions, and it actually started, I was looking at Tyrese Halliburton I'm doing a thing on Tyrese Halliburton for action. And so I was noticing like, oh, how did they beat this? And it's like, oh man, they just like got completely mismatched. Everybody was on the wrong person. Like they ran a 1-5 with Joker was guarding the corner man because they were badly cross matched. The Nuggets, the transition defense is mostly caused by the turnovers. However, even when it's not a turnover issue, you can run on the Nuggets without running a fast break. If you get into your offense and you press, there is a good chance that the Nuggets are going to be confused, cross-matched on the wrong people, out of position, and caught unaware. Like, there's just a lot of possessions where there's 3 guys at the top of the key trying to figure out who they need to be on. And there's like a guy open in the corner or a guy cutting, or there's a guy that's in the corner and then a guy cuts underneath. So the corner man's defender has to come down because somebody's lagging behind. Like it is like nothing else defensively stands out to me as much as this, maybe the overhelping. But really, to me, this might be like a very core central part of the problem is that when I look at the defense and I go through all these possessions, so many freaking times, they're just not like they don't sprint back, get set, find their man, and get everybody matched up right. It's just not in the right position.
I wonder, one of the things I'm wondering is Denver creates a lot of switches on the offensive end. And I wonder if that if it lends them to being out of position when they don't score because they're naturally cross-matched. I wonder if that's a thing. I don't know.
I'll have to look it up. There's stats I can look up about how teams defend after misses and makes. And I would imagine that Denver's probably pretty good defensively after makes and probably below league average after misses. That would track with me, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of this. And this gets into you want to win the pace and the tempo battle. That it's coaches hate talking about pace because it's just the number of possessions in a game. And a lot of it has to do with like a lot of weird and different things. They really don't like talking about it. But if you talk about tempo, they'll talk about it. And the Nuggets don't play with great tempo. And the Nuggets get taken advantage of a lot.
They don't play with great pace too, though, just to be clear.
Either one.
Over the course of like 40 games or more, those two things are often aligned.
Yeah. And so like that to me is a big part of this is the Nuggets need to control this more. I don't know. I just got to say like they got the win and that's good.
I think it was a fine win.
I think this Jazz team is really well coached. And I thought Malik played really well. He was 7 of 13, 4 of 10 from 3. And I thought Olynyk played really hard and then Jokic completely busted his ass.
Yeah, but Olynyk, man, I actually he stands out to me a lot, man. He just knows the toughest route to send Jokic.
Yeah.
Jokic is really good, but he at least knows what that is. Walker
to me, it's like
on the other hand, very hilarious matchup for Jokic. I felt bad for the poor rookies, man. When they get the first Jokic stints, it's always hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. And then like a great close. And look, again, though, I think that maybe the big positive here because I was so frustrated by the defense and that this was close. Murray had 30 again, 30 on 19 shots.
Oh, he's a big story. He was scoring. He was scoring in the ways he always scores.
With Murray goes for 30 on 19 shots with 5 assists and just 1 turnover. Joker goes for 31, 12, and 14 with 1 steal and 4 blocks. Like AG only had 15, but I thought he was really like. Again, I don't want Nuggets fans to miss out on how much Aaron Gordon is giving this team right now.
7 of 9 from 2.
Yeah. So really, like I thought the bench was bad. The starters weren't great to begin with, but they got better as the game went on. And I don't know, it's interesting because like you're very much like it was a fine win. It was okay. And I was very much like, oh my God. Like
I don't think they played well. But I think it was a game that as long as they won, that was the most important thing. And I'm not going to read anything. And to me, they have 4 days off before this next game. And I'm going to judge them a little harsher on Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday than I will on this last game.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about this 4-day break that they've got coming up or that they're in the middle of. And we'll talk about what we're expecting to see and what we're hoping to see and all those type of things leading up into Wednesday's game versus the Washington Wizards. We'll talk about that and more when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. First, I need to tell you about Rocket Money. So Rocket Money is the absolute best way for you to be able to, you get to enjoy all of these savings that you're going to find from saving money on all of these types of situations where you're getting all these subscriptions and things like that. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's such a great way for you to be able to avoid all these types of subscriptions with Rocket Money. Make sure to check out rocketmoney.com. That's rocketmoney.com. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us on a Monday morning. Glad to have you guys along for the ride. Adam, the Nuggets have 4 days off before, or they have 4 days off. They're in the middle of it. They don't play again until Wednesday. They're holding practice tomorrow and Monday. And for you, we were talking about this before the show. You anticipate this being like we've talked a lot about this schedule. Road heavy until now. They have a long, healthy stretch of games where they are almost entirely at home. This is a big chunk where they have so many home games. They get to be in rhythm after an exhausting early part of the schedule. And so what to you is the priority? What is the emphasis? What are the goals? What are the standards that you think the Nuggets need to meet over the stretch of games?
Man, it's tough because I don't know. I'm kind of curious what your answer was for in terms of like the number one thing they should be working on. But I'll give a cop-out answer. I don't think it's the number one most important thing, but I think it's extremely important. And that is conditioning and rest, which sounds like an oxymoron. But I think those two things go hand in hand a little bit. Rest from the wear and tear of playing games and just the bumps and bruises and all those things. But conditioning and that, I just don't think they're in great shape because I don't think they've been in the weight room as consistently and all those different things. So I just want to see the Nuggets look like when teams come to Denver, Denver should be the team that looks more rested and more in shape. And I'm hoping we see that over the next couple of weeks.
The shape thing I think is important, right? Knock off the fatigue, be the team that's more aggressive, be the team that's better rested, be the team that has an edge, be the team that dictates tempo, be the team that dictates pace, be the team that has an edge in these games and really is we're home and we're rolling and we're going to, this is a time to really knock these wins out. This reminds me a lot of the 2012-13 season from the perspective of they had a tough start to the season schedule wise. And everyone was kind of like, yeah, the Nuggets are just kind of there. And then it was 2 months where they just did not, I got so used to it. I was like, this is great. It was my first season. I was like, this team just never loses. They just win every single game at home. It was amazing. So there's like an opportunity for that.
If they have that, by the way, because the schedule is not easy coming up in terms of talent. I mean, they got Washington, if you talk about the teams coming in, Washington and Charlotte the next couple. But after that, you got Memphis, Portland, Phoenix. Yep. Like the teams are good. So if they get an extended homestand stretch with our home win stretch, that will be huge for them.
I've talked about the defensive communication being something that's been missing and that the veterans have kind of singled that out. You got time to work on it. Like you have time to fix all these things that you don't have time to when you're okay. We got to get on the plane. Now we're here and go to sleep and get up and go to the game and come back and get on the plane. Like, okay, you're here. You have time. 4 days can't fix it. Right? Like these next 3 days of practice can't fix anything. But I mean, it can fix some things. I'm saying like, it's not going to be right. We're not going to go in tomorrow and have like a 15-minute, like 30 minutes in. And all of a sudden they're the 2004 Pistons. But you can sharpen up a lot of those things. You can talk through those problems. You have time to talk through those issues. You have time to get more connected, to find that connection, to find that rhythm. And to me, that's not just on the defensive end. It's also on the offensive end. Like cut down the turnovers by sharpening up your ability to play together. Be ready for each other's passes. Like work on these things to find yourselves and find that version of yourselves that's the best. Like this is an opportunity to find the best version of yourselves if they stay healthy, right? If they get through this and they're healthy, that's a huge opportunity. This is a huge opportunity to take advantage of the schedule. You've already set yourself up well by coming out of an extremely road heavy opponent week, but road heavy schedule at 16-10. You are the third best team in the Western Conference. You are 2 games back of the Western Conference lead. You have so much opportunity in front of you, but there's got to be a real I do think there has to be emphasis on this part of the season.
Oh, I do too. I'm actually curious. That'll be a great question to ask tomorrow. It, runs happen at different times. It's prime for them to make their move in the next 6 weeks, and they'll have to have another one later. This is a long season, but to me, this is the like, hey, get into pole position here, get into first place, so that you get a rhythm, get going, and get enough momentum that it propels you through the tougher stretches, the more road heavy stretches that are coming in February and March. So I hope that that's a thing that the team is, if not talking about, just aware of. Like, hey, this is a time for us to make our move and catch a rhythm. And by the way, being at home, I think, gives you an opportunity to catch a shooting rhythm. And KCP has been obviously great on the season as a shooter. He's entered a little bit of a shooting slump. Just recently, he hasn't been quite as hot. So you hope that some of those guys start to catch an offensive 3-point rhythm over here, so that it opens up the games, expands the court a little bit for getting to the basket.
We've talked about like focus and effort and all these types of things. I would like to see the Nuggets, and in particular Nikola Jokic, I would like to see them have fun.
Man, that's a great one. That might be the number one thing. A season is not fun start to finish. Be nice while you're home, around family, around the holidays. It'd be nice to see them having fun, enjoying it. That's a great one, Matt.
I know that Nikola's got a kid now, and that changes the equation, and he's got a lot of responsibilities, and everything is very different for him, and he's played in really big games and really big moments. But you got to find little, like in everything in life, you have to find little ways to find joy. Like you have to find those moments. Like you've got to watch the birds sometimes. I dug out an old book that I absolutely love, a novel, and I found it the other day, and I've taken the time to start reading it, and it makes me laugh every single time. And it's improved. Like it has been really good for me to just do that. Now, also, I'll say this, like I've gotten like really into work. Like I have watched 300 Tyrese Halliburton passes this weekend. Tyrese Halliburton is a phenomenal passer. The NBA can really, like, I'll tell you this, after I've done this this is my 16th season doing this. And you watch all this, and it, like, there are lots of times when I get real burned out, and I get to be a drone, and you're watching, and that's why, like, I come across as jaded in a lot of these conversations, and I don't like that. And so, like, I really try and find things that get me excited, and stuff like how the Bucks defended the Mavericks this weekend on the final possession, and like how Tyrese Halliburton's playing, and how Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is playing, and how Aaron Gordon's playing. Those things are important. So to me, I think it's important for the Nuggets to find some level of joy in the stretch of games, because you're not saddled with all of the extraneous stress that travel puts on you for this duration.
I think it's true. I think there's all of those things that you just said are completely true, and I'm curious to see what the Nuggets look like in light of that. I mean, they're going to be home. They got home on Friday of last week, and they won't leave until Thursday of today, and then they're only gone for one day, and they're back till after Christmas. That's a great stretch for them to just kind of look joyful again. And guess what? Who better to help them look joyful than Monte Morris and Will Barton, old friends coming to town, Wes Unseld coming to town, and I mean, I'm saying this tongue in cheek, but I'm actually kind of meaning it. That should be a thing we circle back to Wednesday night or Thursday morning, whenever we record after that game. Just put a note in that of like, did they look a little bit more fun than what we've seen?
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back, and we're going to give you a stock watch report. We're going to do one player that we think is going to be trending up by Christmas, and one player that we think might be trending down by Christmas. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I need to tell you about LinkedIn Jobs. We're reaching the end of the year, and people are stocking up on hires to get ready for the holiday rush, and it could be a really important to finish the year strong, and the hire can make or break your business's end of the year performance. You want to be 100% certain that you've accessed the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you got to do is log on, post your job in just a few quick entries, and you're going to be getting into just the right people that you want. They use screening questions, which make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses Rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us on a Sunday night. Everybody in the comment section, if you're catching us on Monday morning, hope your week's gotten off to a great start. All right, Adam. So we're gonna do a little stock watch. We're gonna do one player that we think is gonna be trending up by Christmas, and one player that we think will be trending down by Christmas. Do you want to go first, or would you like me to?
You go for it.
Trending up, Michael Porter Jr.
Well, you spoiled my trending down.
Michael Porter Jr. So
All right,
people are asking in the chat if there's been any sort of update. Team still says that, he's day to day, should be in the next week. There's been these kind of reports. Malone, pushed back on that post game, all these types of things. We have detailed on this show a million times about how the Nuggets medical staff does not communicate. Like we've detailed that, right? So it's entirely possible that Michael Porter Jr. only has 1 foot now. Like it's entirely possible that it just got amputated and he's going to have to be a robot. Possible.
Okay.
But I will choose to instead believe that this is a foot bruise that will heal. They can be conservative. They can look at the season long. They can look at his history of injuries and not want to rush him back. And when he comes back and he's available, then I think it's going to make a world of difference from the perspective of adding another weapon. We've seen the length be an issue. We've seen, I think, adding another rebounder adds things. And we really have seen the times when this team has looked its best are when it has its full complement. You build a roster with the idea of it being healthy, and then you build in ideas within that for, okay, if a guy is out, who can replicate roles? But when fully healthy, MPJ unlocks a lot, and he can unlock stuff with the bench unit by being able to rotate in there with Jamal or without him, and bridge those gaps and be an offensive playmaker in terms of scoring. I think this is a good opportunity for Michael Porter Jr. to come back, get his minutes, get in rhythm, and show what he can do.
The reason I disagree with you on this is 2 parts. One, I'm not sure when he's going to actually be back. If I were to guess, I mean, it's just a raw guess at this point, but I would imagine he's out another week and then gets back. It reminds me of 2020, 2021, his second season, where he started the season, first 4 games as the starter and everything else. He gets 24 points, 10, 14, and then 30. And then he goes into the COVID protocols almost immediately into the season. And the Nuggets basically play the next 10 games, I think, without him. Developed a rhythm. When he came back, he had over his next, I don't know what it was, 15 games or so. He had 1 30-point game, but he had a lot of single-digit games. And it actually took him a month after when he got back. The team had kind of found a rhythm, found an identity, not moved on, but just kind of gotten into the flow without him, so that when he came back in, it was almost like he had to fit in. I kind of think it might be similar this time around, where when he gets back, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a slow 10 games or 5 to 10 games where he just wasn't playing at his best, and the team wasn't really emphasizing him. They're more, hey, you're coming back from injury. Let's see how the heel does. Let's see how the back does. Let's not play you too many minutes. Let's not call too many plays for you. I kind of think that's what's going to happen when he comes back.
All right. In the 5 home games MPJ has played, he shot 46% from the field, 44% from 3, and 91% from the line, and is a plus 15 per game. On the road, he has shot 47% from the field, 42% from 3, but just 74% from the line. He's had a slightly lower turnover rate, a lower usage rate, but he's also been a -1. So I think in part that being at home might actually help him. I think in part with some of this is that it's likely that the bench unit plays better at home. Like that's one thing we
But that's like another question is, does he play as many minutes with the bench as he was before when he's coming back from injury? Or do they think, we don't want to put him in that big a responsibility?
I think they can, because I think they can stagger him with Jamal. Right? Like they got to it for like, I don't remember how many games they got to it, But those lineups that had Jamal and MPJ with the bench unit were killer. Like, it helped everything because it's basically another starting unit. Like, it's 2 starters at least, and to me, that helps it, helps considerably. So, I understand why you're saying this. I am choosing to believe that in the typical fashion of MPJ defying all logic at all times, that by Christmas, we'll be high on him. All right, so who's your trending up by Christmas?
So my trending up was Jamal Murray.
Ooh.
Jamal Murray. Again, I think he's already trending up a little bit. In fact, I think Murray, we've declared him back like on DMVR, we're making a joke. We've declared him back like 7 times this season. But I really mean it this time. I think he was back in the COVID stint, or whatever kind of took him out. But these last 2 games, he's looked confident. He's looked at his rhythm. And what better place and time to get confident than a large homestand where you get to be rested? You get to do the proper rehab. I know he's doing rehab and different things, maintenance on the road, but it's just better when you're in your own facilities, resting in your own bed. I think that Jamal Murray, we start to see a string of games where he just looks like his best self game after game after game.
I like that you've decided to go with the guy that hit the game winner in Portland and then scored 30 points on Saturday.
Going out on a limb here, Matt.
Real hot take. Thanks for bringing it with the expert predictions no one could have seen coming, Mahrez.
I think it's going to be really good. Like, all right, let me put it this way. Would you be surprised if between now and the 6 weeks is really this homestand, 6 weeks? Would you be surprised if we saw a 40-point game from Jamal Murray?
No.
Would you be surprised if we saw a 45-point game from Jamal Murray?
A little bit.
So I wouldn't be, again, I think that's what I'm talking about, that rate, because I'm with you, those exact numbers. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was a game where we're kind of like, is he going for 50 tonight? Like, hold on. Oh, he's got 26 at the half. Like, all right, look at this. Murray is looking like his old self. So we'll see.
I like this from Danny. Schrodinger's Jamal. He is simultaneously back and not back at all times.
So true.
Okay, so for my trending down, I'm going to be real with you. I was going to say Bones, but I can't because he's going to be home. And I think,
he's the ultimate home.
Like, the numbers say that Bones is better on the road, but I think over the course of the season, by the end of the season, his home splits will be better. He just absolutely freaking loves playing with the crowd at his back. And so, look, some tough games coming up. Like, he's got some tough bench units. Like, he's going to get like Memphis. He's going to get Tyus Jones, right? The Suns bench unit is bad, but it's got some good defenders on it. So a lot of tough games, I think, coming up for him, but he's too good at home. I'll say trending down is going to be Vlatko. I kind of worry a little bit that Vlatko, like that again, this is like, he's been terrible the last 2 games. So I'm doing the same thing with Jamal, only in reverse. I worry a little bit that some of the shine's rubbing off and teams might be actually catching on to some of the.
I don't think it's that. I mean, look, I think Vlatko's an 11th man.
Yeah.
And they no longer need him. Like, I just think that's where we're at.
The only other one I can think of trending, like, because Bruce Brown's already trending down, so I can't do that.
Yeah, he's already been. And I actually think he'll be better. Like, I would say he's trending up because he was trending down up to today. So I think he'll start trending up again.
And then, like, everybody else is pretty consistent. So, like, the honestly, if we're talking about betting terms, like, the easy sell here is Aaron. Is to be like, he's already played.
Just because he's so great. Like, how could you not? That's a good point.
Like, he has to be worse by Christmas because he can't be any better. Like, also, it's so tough.
There might be a thing. I don't know if it works this way, Matt, but it might be a thing where everybody else starts to play better, so his impact is less.
Yeah.
Like, it could just be that, but I don't know.
So, yeah. I wanted to real quickly before we get out of here, just kind of note some things going on in the Western Conference. Suns lost 2 to the New Orleans Pelicans. They fall to 16-11, now 1 game behind the Denver Nuggets. Denver Booker doesn't play in the second matchup. So I pay a lot of attention. Like, I do think I can learn things from fans as much as I will rail about how dumb they can be. I do pay a lot of attention to what these fan bases are, because they follow, they're watching every single night and they're very passionate. Suns fans' reaction to the Celtics loss and this last one, the first loss of the Pels without Booker, was very much like this is not okay. This team is not as good as its record. The front office needs to do something. Like, that's what I'm getting from the fan base. Now, some of that is the typical stuff like we talk about on here. Like, they lose a game and everybody's like, worst team ever, blow it up, tank for Wembanyama. But I think some of that is that you can be this team that looks like they're coasting and still kind of come out of and like under the hood, so to speak. Like there are some kind of concerns. The West to me is very flawed. It's very beatable. That to me is one of like the best
I
things
agree.
about the stretch for the Nuggets is like I don't think the Nuggets have played anywhere near what they're capable of. And they're 2 back in the loss column from number 1 spot in the West.
It's what's funny, man, is if you were Denver, like if you're Calvin Booth and you're looking at is it worth doing something, I don't want to say reckless, but something a little wild that widens your window this year as big as it could possibly get, but maybe compromises you in the future. This is a year that I think if you it's starting to look like maybe it's worth it. Maybe this is a year where there's just an opening and like, will you have better odds? I'm not even saying about your team personally. I'm just saying when you look at the opponent, will it be harder? Will the path be harder in future years than it is than this year? I think it's very likely that the answer is yes. It will be harder in future years. So maybe you do see an opportunity out there that's like, hey, this doesn't make sense in 3-4 years from now, but it sure as heck makes sense right now, and we see a chance. Or maybe you just feel good about it. Even if Denver does stay put, they should feel good about the fact that New Orleans is good, but come on, they're not more proven than Denver. They're not better than Denver. They're not more skilled than Denver. Same goes for Phoenix. Same goes for Golden State. Like, I definitely think this is a year you look at it. We're far enough into the season that I think there's a lot of good teams, but there's no great ones out west.
I mean, honestly, this is, and you like out west, this is a particular thing. Like, imagine you're in the Eastern Conference and you're looking up and you got Boston and Milwaukee at the top. Like, the Bucks have played nowhere near as good as they can, and they just keep winning games.
Well,
like the Bucks under the hood are not impressive, and they're 19-7. Like
they lost to Houston today with their big 3 intact. So, I mean, every team. Which, by the way, I bring that up to say every team has bad losses. So many people always tell me Denver's the only team that does this, a real contender. Nope. Like, guys, come on, man. Houston is bad. They've now gotten Phoenix and Milwaukee with their guys. But to your point, if you go to that Eastern Conference, I mean, right now Philadelphia is the 5 seed. Like Philadelphia, we all think is a really good team. They're the 5 seed, and then you get to the second round, and you're talking about Boston, Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Philly, Cleveland. Those are all really good teams. Miami right now is hanging on to the play-in. So the East is tough.
I have a great Twitter account that you need to follow.
What's that?
Not just your team.
Oh, that is a good one. I like it.
It was started by a Jazz fan.
Yeah.
And if you go to it, it's just a listing of all of the good teams losing to these bad teams.
And I love always the random guys get hot against the Nuggets. And it's like, that's the NBA. Like, these guys are all NBA players. These guys were all the best players on their Division I college teams. Like, these guys are all capable of a 30-point night. I mean, Nickeil Alexander.
Your favorite Brooklyn net, Cam Thomas, was spectacular yesterday in a shorthanded win over the Pacers.
Really?
Yeah. Like, let him do like they sat everybody. No Seth Curry, no Kevin Durant, no Kyrie Irving, no Nick Claxton, and they got the win versus the Pacers. And they were wearing, by the way, their ABA jerseys, which were phenomenal.
Really?
I want to see the Nuggets wear the throwback ABAs. It was terrific. And had an entire video segment on the ABA rivalry between the Nets and the Pacers. Oh, mwah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Let's go wrap it up for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Hope you guys have a great week. We'll be back on Tuesday with another show. We'll talk to you about what we heard at practice, if we're able to make it.
I'll make it. I'm excited.
If not, I'll just crib Singer's tweets. We'll talk about, we'll get you started ready for talking about what's going to be going on as the Nuggets go into this homestand, the opponents that are coming up, all those kinds of things. Lots to get to. Going to be doing shows 5 times a week. We won't do them 7 days a week, because after 2 weeks, that's 14. And you just can't do something 14 times in a row.